The Ferrari had been parked in the same spot for 30 days, its red paint dulled by dust and neglect, like a wounded animal too proud to cry for help. People passing by slowed their steps to stare. A Ferrari did not belong in a narrow street lined with cracked sidewalks and flickering streetlights. And yet, there it was, broken, silent, waiting. Inside the small apartment above a bakery, Elena Moretti stared down at the street through her window, coffee growing cold in her hands. She was used to control, to motion, to engines that obeyed her command. For most of her life, if something broke, she replaced it. If someone disappointed her, she walked away. But the Ferrari had refused to be fixed, and in its stubborn silence, it mirrored something inside her that had been unraveling for far longer than 30 days. Elena was the CEO of a global luxury automotive brand, a woman whose name appeared in business magazines and conference halls. She owned more cars than she could count, each flawless, each serviced by the best engineers money could buy. But this Ferrari was different. It was her late husband's car. Marco had loved it with a childish joy, polishing it himself, driving it just to hear the engine sing. The night he died, the Ferrari was the last thing he touched. After the funeral, Elena had driven it once. Halfway down the road, the engine shuddered and died. Since then, no specialist could revive it. Engineers from Milan, mechanics flown in from Germany, diagnostics that cost more than most people earned in a year. Nothing worked. After weeks of frustration, Elena had it towed to this forgotten neighborhood garage, more out of exhaustion than hope. The garage belonged to Yusuf Khan, a mechanic who fixed cars the way doctors once healed patients, with hands, patience, and instinct. He lived behind the garage in a single room, shared meals with stray cats, and carried the quiet dignity of someone who had lost much but kept moving forward anyway. He was poor in money, rich in skill, and invisible to people like Elena. When the Ferrari arrived, Yusuf had stood silently, wiping grease from his hands, as the tow truck driver laughed. Even geniuses couldn't fix this one, the men said. Good luck. Yusuf did not laugh. He opened the hood and listened. For days, he did nothing else. He did not touch the engine at first. He simply sat with it, listening, smelling, remembering. Cars spoke to him, not in words, but in patterns and pain. This one carried grief in its metal. It had been pushed too hard, not physically, but emotionally. Machines, Yusuf believed, absorbed the weight of their owners. Elena came to the garage every afternoon, heels clicking against oil-stained concrete, her posture stiff, her eyes tired. She never spoke at first. She just watched Yusuf work, or rather, not work. On the 5th day, she finally snapped. "You haven't fixed anything," she said, her voice sharp with frustration. "Everyone else at least tried." Yusuf looked up calmly. "Trying is easy," he said. "Understanding takes time." She scoffed and turned away, but something in his tone unsettled her. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. Over the next weeks, the garage became a strange meeting place between two worlds. Elena began staying longer, sitting on an overturned crate, answering emails less frequently. Yusuf spoke little, but when he did, his words carried weight. He asked her who the car belonged to. She hesitated, then answered honestly. "My husband," she said. "He died last year." Yusuf nodded slowly. "Then the car isn't broken," he said. "It's grieving." She laughed bitterly. "Cars don't grieve." "Neither did I," Yusuf replied, "until my wife died and my hands forgot how to work for months." Silence settled between them, heavy but shared. For the first time since Marco's death, Elena felt seen, not as a CEO, not as a wealthy widow, but as someone broken in a way money could not fix. The challenges mounted. Yusuf discovered a rare fault deep in the engine, something modern diagnostic tools couldn't detect. A handmade component, altered years ago by Marco himself. Replacing it would erase the car's soul. Leaving it would keep it silent. Yusuf faced a choice that could cost him his reputation or his conscience. Elena faced her own battle. Her board of directors was pushing her to sell assets tied to her past, including the Ferrari. "It's just a car," they said. But to her, it was the last conversation she never finished. On the 30th day, Yusuf called her early in the morning. His voice trembled slightly. "Come," he said. "Bring no expectations. When she arrived, the garage door was open, sunlight spilling onto the floor. Yusuf stood beside the Ferrari, hands clean, eyes tired. He had rebuilt the component by hand, preserving Marco's design while healing its flaw. It was risky, imperfect, human. "Turn the key," he said. Elena's hands shook as she sat inside. For a moment, she hesitated, fear gripping her chest. Then she turned the key. The engine roared to life, not aggressive, but warm, alive, like a heartbeat returning after a long pause. Tears blurred her vision as laughter escaped her lips, raw and unfiltered. She stepped out and hugged Yusuf without thinking, clinging to him as years of grief finally broke free. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. Yusuf gently pulled back. "You already did," he said. "You trusted me." She offered him money, more than he had ever seen. He refused most of it. Instead, he asked for tools, training for young mechanics in the neighborhood, and a chance to keep doing honest work. Elena agreed, humbled. Months later, the garage became a training center. Young people who once believed their lives were stuck learned skills, discipline, and hope. Elena visited often, no longer hiding behind titles. She drove the Ferrari sometimes, not fast, but with purpose. The car had been broken for 30 days, but it had taken 2 broken souls to fix it. In the end, neither left unchanged. Elena learned that power meant nothing without connection. Yusuf learned that even the quietest hands could change powerful lives. And the Ferrari, once silent in grief, now carried a story of healing, proving that sometimes what seems broken is only waiting for someone patient enough to listen. The Ferrari no longer felt like an object to Elena. After it roared back to life, it became a presence, a reminder that something dormant inside her had also started breathing again. She drove it slowly through the city that evening, the streets glowing under amber lights, memories rising with every turn of the wheel. Marco's laughter echoed in her mind, not painfully this time, but softly, like a voice telling her she was still allowed to live. Yet healing never comes without resistance. The very next morning, reality returned with sharp edges. Emails from the board flooded her phone, their tone impatient and cold. They wanted answers. They wanted profits. They wanted her to stop wasting time in forgotten neighborhoods and return to the glass towers where decisions were made without emotion. One message stood out, blunt and final. If she didn't refocus on the company, they would do it for her. Elena closed the phone and stared at the garage across the street. Yusuf was already at work, sleeves rolled up, teaching a young boy how to listen to an engine instead of rushing to tools. The boy nodded eagerly, eyes bright with purpose. Something tightened in Elena's chest. She realized she was standing at the same crossroads she had faced since Marco's death: hide behind power or step forward with honesty. Inside the garage, Yusuf noticed her quiet tension. "Trouble follows healed things," he said without looking up. "Because once you're stronger, life tests you." She smiled sadly. "Then it's already started." The challenges deepened quickly. A luxury car magazine published a small article questioning why a CEO was seen frequenting a PoorMechanic's garage. Rumors twisted into accusations. Some claimed it was a publicity stunt. Others said she was losing focus, losing edge. Her authority, once unquestioned, began to crack. Yusuf faced his own struggles. The sudden attention brought people who wanted quick fixes, shortcuts, fame. Suppliers raised prices. Old debts resurfaced. And with every success story from the garage, envy followed close behind. One night, the garage door was vandalized, a warning painted in ugly words. Yusuf cleaned it himself before morning, saying nothing. Elena found out anyway. That evening, she confronted him. "You're paying a price for helping me," she said. "I can make this easier." Money, security, lawyers. Yusuf shook his head. "If I accept protection, I lose the lesson. These boys," he said, glancing toward the apprentices, "need to see that dignity stands even when threatened." His words struck her harder than any boardroom argument ever had. A week later, Elena made a decision that stunned everyone. She announced a new initiative within her company, not as a marketing move, but as a core mission. Training programs for underprivileged mechanics. Investment in skill-based education. Partnerships with small garages, starting with Yusuf's. The backlash was immediate. Share prices dipped. Interviews turned aggressive. She was accused of emotional leadership, of letting grief guide billion-dollar decisions. One board member resigned publicly, calling her vision reckless. That night, Elena sat alone in the Ferrari, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel. Doubt crept in, sharp and merciless. She wondered if everyone else was right. If healing had made her weak instead of wise. Yusuf found her there, hours later, when the garage lights were already dim. He didn't ask questions. He simply sat beside her on the curb. Engines shake before they settle, he said quietly. So do people. Weeks passed. Slowly, something unexpected happened. The training programs produced talent. Stories emerged of young mechanics transforming their lives. Customers trusted the brand more, not less. The company's image shifted from distant luxury to meaningful impact. Profits stabilized, then rose. Elena stood before her board again, this time steady, unafraid. We don't just build cars, she said. We build journeys. And journeys need people. When she returned to the garage, Yusuf was replacing an old sign with a new one, simple and hand-painted. Elena helped him hold it up. For the first time, they laughed freely, without weight. The Ferrari rested nearby, no longer a symbol of loss, but of passage. Chapter 2 did not end with triumph, but with clarity. Both Elena and Yusuf understood that fixing one engine had only opened the door. The real work had just begun, not in metal and machines, but in lives that were finally moving forward.